Hello, a very warm welcome today to Sam and Max. Can you guys just tell us a little bit about yourselves, please?
Ladies first.
Sure. So we're mother and son team. We're both therapists. I'm a psychotherapist, specialise in relationship psychosexual work. And Max?
I am also a psychotherapist, relationship and psychosexual work, and also a lot of work with young men, particularly around common mental health issues, and also extending to trauma, such as we both do EMDR therapy as well.
And I think the main thing is that Max is currently a school counsellor at a boys' school 1 day a week, and I used to be a school counsellor. So our speciality is actually dealing with young children and young people, but on a psychosexual basis.
Amazing. So you've got a lot of depth and wealth of knowledge there behind the two of you. So you co-wrote Porn Bomb, and that's a beautiful, unique partnership. So how did you two decide to team up on this as something so important?
Well, I suppose from both working in schools, you kind of get an overall glance of what the present issues are and what might potentially be on the rise. One thing that we both noticed was the issues around porn and sex addiction have been on the rise massively. And that's both, within school settings and also in private practice too. Now, after discussing that, there isn't too much out there. With porn and sex addiction, it's very much a behind closed doors addiction. And sometimes that means it isn't quite seen quite in the light as much as, let's say, someone who might be an alcoholic or addicted to a drug. So that means that people are a lot more isolated with this addiction, and there's less support out there for them. And we thought, well, what can we do to sort of branch out and find a way to support these people? And particularly when a lot of them are young people, who aren't even 18 yet sometimes.
Yeah, because I kind of call it the silent addiction. Firstly, because nobody wants to talk about it. But secondly, because a lot of people don't actually realise they're addicted to it until maybe it's too late. Maybe they're getting erectile problems, or they're having problems with intimacy in their own relationships. So if you were to describe Porn Bomb to a 16-year-old who's never heard of it, what would you say in a couple of sentences?
Well, I suppose it's an easy read. And what I mean by that is quite a lot of psychotherapy books out there and whatnot are very theoretical, quite a lot of, big language used, and they're wrote for other psychotherapists, whereas Porn Bomb is wrote for the everyday reader, really. It's something that anyone can understand, and particularly someone who might be struggling with porn addiction. It allows them to understand what the addiction is, how to reduce the shame around the addiction, which unfortunately there is quite a lot of nowadays, and also allows them to kind of gain an understanding of where to go from here. It's not just about support, it's also about directions of how can they combat the addiction and find a way through it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And so how does regular porn use tend to affect things in young people, like confidence, mood, or some things, how they feel about their body or relationships in your experience, guys?
Yeah, I think it puts so much unrealistic expectations on people. I think young men, even though it seems like it's young men primarily that come to us with addictions, but I see that they are coerced by porn, as much as some people can be coerced into having sex or doing sexual acts. So they see porn and they think, well, this is great fun, everyone's doing it, and they feel then that all their friends must have done all the acts they see on porn, or they're not normal for doing it. So a young man wouldn't watch Spider-Man and think he could jump from building to building. Yet they watch porn and they think their sex life should be like that. So they get disappointed in themselves, in their partner. They think something's either wrong with themselves or them. Body image that gives them insecurities. And I've not met one young man who's not concerned about the size of his penis from watching porn.
Yeah, and they don't know a lot of the hidden truths and stuff around it. I mean, I was interviewing an ex-male actor a few days ago, and he was hospitalised 3 times because of the use of erectile drugs and things that he used to enhance his look, his physical appearance as well. So, they're competing against something that's actually not even real. But in real life, how does what people see in porn clash with the actual dating, intimacy, or friendships, relationships? What do you see with that side of things?
Yeah, well, with porn and the content on there, a lot of it is very exaggerated because it's meant to capture the constant dopamine hits, really, of more exaggerated. And quite often when people get stuck on the addiction spiral, it's chasing that kick again and again and again. Porn is directly tailored to that. It's looking, what is that bigger kick, that more eccentric act and whatnot, which in reality is, well, like we said, it's not realistic. And it means when it comes down to authentic sex and intimacy, which quite often needs a lot more of a build-up, more foreplay, and more of that authentic connection for people to ultimately feel comfortable and safe. Porn just essentially skips all of that bit and makes people think, oh, that doesn't matter. It's all straight to the act, essentially, which again isn't realistic, nor helps the partners feel comfortable together. Even the person who is wanting those acts cannot realize that the reason why they might not fully be comfortable is because they also might need a bit more of that security and comfort going into it, as opposed to jumping straight into the sexual acts that they've seen on porn.
Yeah, I'd add to that porn sex is performative sex. It's doing to somebody, not with somebody, and it's performative. Yeah. And many young people are actually having to rely on alcohol to get themselves the confidence to do it or to get through it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, the word pornography comes from the 19th century Greek word pornogros, which is to write about prostitutes. And back in those days, they wrote about stories of these women, but now it's gone to photographs, and then it's gone to even extreme graphic things. And that, like you were saying, Max, it's gone from one dopamine fix to another. And like drug abuse, you start off with a little bit and you need more and more and more to get the same fix. And you find that young people, I don't know whether you guys have found this, but they might start off with quite vanilla, gentle porn, but then they need more extreme and more extreme you find that? Yeah,
I found that. My youngest clients so far, well, this is the ones that have admitted it to me. My youngest so far, where porn has taken him further and further, and who's now looking at illegal sex, was just 17.
Yeah, and I've heard stories of addictions where even have gone down watching things that are very, very ashamed of around animals and all sorts of dark
not only
places.
That as well, but also a quite, I say, particular topic right now is AI, and the rise in AI and how that is, adding more, I say, directions for pornography to go in, which is becoming even more dangerous. Obviously people can do whatever they want with that, and therefore trying to fulfill a fantasy, which quite often can't happen.
Yeah, and it's all that really boils down to as well, Max, isn't it, is consent, which people don't have somebody's consent to make an AI video of them unless they're creating a complete AI person. But a lot of people, the young people these days, are picking on somebody they fancy and using their image and sexualizing that. So the consent work and the consent conversations that I teach the young people to have are really, really important around this. And that needs to start from a very, very early age now, because with this digital world, boundaries are more and more and more important, consent and boundaries. So it's a big topic that needs to be covered. A young person listening who realizes, oh, this might be more of a problem than I thought it was, what are the first couple of steps that you would suggest?
Well, the first thing I'd say is don't panic. And what I mean by that is quite often when people, believe they might have an addiction such as pornography, they do have a lot of shame connected to it, and there can be a lot of embarrassment or guilt or a panic. And this is something so many young people are going with. And as unfortunate as it is that a lot of people are going through it, it's a journey that people don't have to be alone on, and that's what happens quite often. And there is absolutely support out there, whether that be through schools and the talks that you do, for example, Larissa, whether it be through psychoeducation and therapy. And there is also a lot of online tools, obviously. Our book is one of them, but not just the only one, around what helps to this topic.
Yeah, I think adding to that, the beauty of the book, because I wanted it to be non-judgmental and non-shaming. I want someone to come out of this thinking, actually, it's not just me. I'm actually normal. So in the book, first of all, there are 6 real-life cases that I think most young people reading that will relate to one of the characters, or it will have happened to them. And then there is a quiz in there that they can take then it will say, is this a problem or not? And then there's a self-help steps to recover from that.
That's amazing. That's an amazing tool. And there's all the information about Sam and Max's book on Better Boundaries website. Well, I'll ask you a little bit more about that later, but I loved the book, and I loved all the different stories in there, and you could just really relate to each one of those young people and understand where they were coming from. So what we have to really think about is there are 14 million active porn users in the UK, and it has really, really become normalised. But it is a £77 billion industry. So the industry isn't going to want to stop young people watching it. So yes, we've got the Online Safety Act come in, but I really do believe strongly that we need this two-pronged effect of safety and education, because education is about bringing the darkness, light into the darkness, and it's now time to bring the light into the darkness of pornography. Porn Bomb uses some illustrations and straightforward language. How does that style help you guys get the message across? better than a traditional serious book.
Well, I suppose it's on this topic is what you need, really. Again, it is quite a challenging topic, and for someone who, I think, as I mentioned just earlier, might be feeling a lot of shame, it can be challenging to want to read through a book about this, especially then if there's all these, let's say, fancy, psychoeducational terms that they might not understand yet, and it's hard for them to feel connected to. When there's all these, I say this, psychoeducational language, it's tricky to understand what's going on. By having the illustrations, by having the more, again, I don't want to say childish language, it's not that, but a more human level of communication, it just helps them to understand what's going on and to read the book and feel more comfortable in that too. We've all, I'm sure, had to sit through a long book at one point that's, very, very clinical and very, big words and whatnot, to put it simply, that we think, oh God, I could fall asleep here. And this is the opposite, really. It's not meant to be something to just educate. It's meant to hold you as well and help you to understand that, you're not alone through this.
Yeah, it's making it easy and relatable. But what I find a lot when I go into schools and colleges is that young people kind of think that sex education is something that they should snigger and laugh about, and inappropriate banter is really acceptable, but having honest, respectful conversations around sex isn't. And this is what I'm trying to change, and that's why my strapline is, or my mission statement is, let's change the way that we talk about it, because I feel that giving it the gravitas and the importance that it deserves will take people away from that giggly laughing thing. Because if they get this subject wrong, they could mess their life up, somebody else's life, or create a life. It is such a powerful God-given pleasure that it created every one of us, and it needs to be kind of respected in that way. I think what you're doing, what we're trying to do here at Better Boundaries, is moving it into a space where we can talk about it and we can do it in a very respectful, empowered way. So we're giving young people their power and confidence and
absolutely
their value around it. Yeah.
There's always been such, I say, a taboo around talking about sex and whatnot too, and that's what often makes people be more giggling about it and whatnot when they're first hearing about it, when it is something that is an important topic that does need to be discussed. But also, people need to be open about it. Sex can be fun, sex can be enjoyable, and people should understand that and be able to find the more comfortable and safe ways to do that, instead of seeing it as this.
I mean, of course, when you see pornography or sexualized images, it does awaken your sexual energy. So it does make you feel really, really good. But how I've talked to my son about it is that sometimes when you're watching things that activate it, some things aren't okay, and they will make you have an inherent shame. We've talked a lot about shame, and Dr. Brené Brown describes it as the fear of not being good enough for connection. So it gives you that inherent feeling that you're not good enough for a connection. And so I just think that it's so important for young people to know, like you said earlier, there's nothing wrong. They've done nothing wrong. It's a natural, beautiful feeling, but it's where they want to use that energy. They need to use it wisely so that it is much better for them. So how do you guys feel about Porn Education Awareness Week? And how does Porn Bomb fit into the Awareness Week? And what can listeners do this week to get involved or start important conversations?
I think it's very important at the moment, because I've trained with StopSo, which is a charity for sexual offenders, which people would think then, oh, you're going to work with paedophiles who molest young children. And no, the biggest numbers now of sexual abuse are committed by other children. So I did the training to deal with peer-on-peer abuse because I'm getting so much of it. So I think the main thing is, whereas people can buy a packet of cigarettes and there's a warning on there, there's no warnings with porn. And all young people will look at porn, think it's great, think it's funny, share things with their friends. And when they first start, they might, you mentioned the word power, they might be in control. But what they don't realise, they don't see the hidden dangers. So the more they watch it, and then it becomes a habit. And then they rely on it for difficult emotions when they're bored, when they're lonely, when they're fed up, when someone's, rejected them. And the more they do that, they don't understand what they're going down. So this is just saying to them, look, just be careful. This is what could happen if you're not careful.
And if somebody listening wants support, apart from your book or porn education, what would you suggest? Any therapy, any teen-friendly or affordable things that they can do?
Yeah, absolutely. There are a lot of agencies out there that offer affordable or free therapy for those who might be struggling financially. And as well as that,
Amazing.
more and more schools are adding in their own, I say, support teams, whether that be around specifically porn or one specific issue or a wider range of support. There is always support there through, especially with schools. You know, they absolutely have all the right directions to take you in. And also from, I say, general therapy as well is something that can absolutely be beneficial. People are quite often, I say, a bit intimidated or nervous the first time they go into therapy, when really, you know, they're still in control of it. You know, they control the pace, the direction of it. You know, they get to choose the topics discussed, and it's a space for them to discuss what they want. You know, it doesn't have to always be doom and gloom as well. That's quite a common, you know, misconception about therapy. You know, it's obviously it's good for talking about challenging emotional topics, but ultimately it's a space to explore, to understand, and to find, you know, where do you want to go from here.
Brilliant, brilliant. And another thing I'd like to just pop in and ask, if it's okay, is there any advice that you guys have for parents around talking to their young person around?
Yeah, definitely.
After you.
Yeah. So I think this is the problem, because talking about porn means you're talking about masturbation. And nearly every child, if their parents try and talk, they will close them down because they'll be embarrassed. Who wants to talk to the mom about that? So I think sometimes it's not doing it directly. You could either sort of say, my friend's son or my friend's daughter has got a problem with such that you can make it up, you know. Do you have any problems like that, or any of your friends? Try and make it less directive at them. I think doing things like just leaving the book, leave it on their bed, don't say a word and walk away. Curiosity will get the better of them and they will do it. And then you can say, look, I've left you something. If you want to talk about it, I'm here later. If you don't, that's fine. All the help they need is in the book. And I think just, doing it in a gentle way, not so directive, because the child will think they're going to be judged, told off, in trouble.
And it's also understanding what the function of the dysfunction is. Now, something I always say to my clients is every dysfunction has a function. And as much as obviously, let's take porn addiction, for example, we're aware of what the dysfunction and the dangers of it is. You think, why is that person doing it? Because they believe that it helps to regulate, albeit not in a healthy way, but in some sense for them, it helps them to regulate. Now, let's say if you theoretically take that away altogether, now, as good as it is that you've stopped the bad habit, well, then what do they have to regulate then? It's about having healthy alternatives in place. And this isn't just porn. This is any sort of bad habits that we use to regulate, alcohol, anything we do in excess. It's having those healthy things to replace it with that then help you to regulate in a healthy way. Some of the cliches of the gym, of fitness, new hobbies, activities.
Healthy, positive dopamine.
Yeah, exactly. And it's finding those to replace it with, because otherwise, you take out that block of the porn addiction, and again, you've stopped the bad habit, but then nothing helps to regulate them, and it builds up inside, and it could potentially go to something worse.
Yeah, and the book includes a really good chapter on healthy coping mechanisms, like to do things instead.
Wonderful, some great tools. So can I also ask you, what would you say the worst scenarios have been with young people that have had porn addiction? Has it affected their families, their life? Do they close off? What are some of the worst cases that you've seen?
I think for me, I'm getting so many young women from, say, 19 to 29, and they come to me for therapy, and they say they have anxiety. So I'm like, okay, but then when I peel back the layers and I see what's causing the anxiety, generally, I'm in a new relationship, but he's lovely. However, they're scared of sex. And then when I go back further, I can see that when they're 12, 13, 14, they were coerced into having sex or doing sexual acts from their boyfriends when they were young, before they were ready. And the boys are doing this because they're being coerced by porn, which is they need a partner to try all these things out on. They're subconsciously coercing sometimes their other people to do things with them. With young men that come, if they're sex addicts or porn addicts, they've been in trouble when it's peer-on-peer abuse for doing things with a younger sister, a little cousin. So I'm seeing such an effect, because kids are trying to recreate what they've seen on.
Yeah. It's just become so normal, hasn't it? You see it without being told, hang on guys, that's not real, or this is going to do this to you, or have you thought about all these things? We're leaving them in the dark, aren't we? I think the work that you're doing, your book. So how can we get hold of a book to leave on our child's bed?
So the book is available on Amazon, just under the title Porn Bomb, and that's Amazon UK. Obviously, it will be on the American one as well, I believe, in a few of the other countries. And also in terms of reaching out to us as therapists, we're also on websites such as Counselling Directory and the BACP Directory.
I think the main thing is that The book is on pornbomb.co.uk, and on Amazon you need to put in porn bomb Maximillian Marcham, Samantha Marcham, because if you just put in porn bomb, you might get something different.
Okay, so guys, finally, what would be the one message that you hope every young person and every parent takes away from both the book and this conversation?
I think for me, the main thing is, if it's women coming to me, they only come 19, 29, and they only then realise what's happened to them. I get young men, usually at university, when they're having relationships and having problems, maybe they have erectile dysfunction, or they can't actually do anything with a normal girl, or things aren't what they expected. They're only all realising something's wrong when they sort of get into their 20s. So the reason, working with the people from that age group, I wanted to do the book to warn the kids at 12, 13, 14, look, this is what could happen, so they don't only realise it when they're in their 20s.
I think to add on to that as well, as much as it's important to warn them of the the very large danger that it represents, if this is something that you are struggling with, then it's okay. There is support out there. Absolutely will be more support as time goes by, hopefully, as well. And this is a battle that you definitely can win, if you take it down the right direction and find the right support.
Thank you. Yeah, that's an amazing end there. And there is a lot of support for you guys, and I'm dedicated to giving you that. And I know you guys are too. So thank you so much for everything today. And yeah, here's to educating on this amazing topic.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Larissa.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye-bye.